What's going on, everybody? My name is Connor May from Sportsbook Review, and I am here recording my first college football video of the season. I had a great time last weekend watching the first week of college football, and I am now ready to profit in week 2. So let's go ahead and jump into it with 3 selections. For our first matchup, let's go ahead and take a look at the Northwestern Wildcats visiting the Duke Blue Devils. The Northwestern Wildcats are coming off a victory in week 1 after they beat the Nevada Wolfpack by a final score of 31-20. However, they were losing in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes remaining by a score of 20-17 until they were able to push across 2 late touchdowns where the final score resulted in 31-20. Clayton Thorson, the Northwestern Wildcats quarterback, played magnificent last week, and I really think he is beginning to mature as he threw for 352 yards along with 2 touchdowns. And I really think that the head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats, Pat Fitzgerald, can really get his team ready to play this week against the Blue Devils and avoid some of his first 3-quarter woes that they experienced in week 1. On the flip side, the Duke Blue Devils took home a victory last week pretty easily against North Carolina Central with a final score of 60-7. The Blue Devils sophomore quarterback Daniel Jones played very well in this matchup where he threw for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns against North Carolina Central. However, Northwestern is a much better football team than the Duke Blue Devils, and I think that -2 is simply too low of a line for the Wildcats, and I'm going to go ahead and take the Northwestern Wildcats at -2 this weekend against the Duke Blue Devils. Moving on to our next game, we are going to get to some Pac-12 and Big Ten action as Oregon is hosting Nebraska at home. Last week, the Ducks exploded with 703 yards of total offense last week, and they also had 348 of those 703 yards came on the ground against Southern Utah. Although Southern Utah is not that good of an opponent for the Oregon Ducks, the Ducks sure looked like they were in mid-season form. On the flip side of this matchup is the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who played the complete opposite way the Oregon Ducks did in week 1, where they surrendered 497 total yards of offense against Arkansas State, which is a very average team. I'm looking for Oregon to capitalize on offense through the Nebraska weak defense, where they gave up 415 yards and 3 touchdowns to the Arkansas QB Justice Hansen last weekend. With all of that said, let's go ahead and back the Oregon Ducks at -13.5 this weekend against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And moving on to our third matchup of this weekend, let's go ahead and talk about the game that everyone is talking about, Oklahoma at Ohio State. The Oklahoma Sooners had a very easy season opener as they beat the UTEP Miners last week with a score of 56-7. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic game where he threw for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns, but the most impressive part might have been his completion percentage, where Baker Mayfield completed 95% of his passes. I'm looking for the Sooners to have a very good pass attack in this game and to be down early against an Ohio State Buckeyes team where they will need to throw the ball late to throw up some points on that scoreboard. On the other side of this matchup is the Ohio State Buckeyes, who beat the Indiana Hoosiers last week with a final score of 49-21. The Buckeyes quarterback JT Barrett threw for 304 yards passing and had 3 touchdowns. The Buckeyes will also be getting back running back Mike Weber, who is expected to play for the Buckeyes, which will definitely be a boost to their offense. However, I think the Buckeyes secondary is still very weak, and I'm going to look for Baker Mayfield to get some touchdowns in this game along with JT Barrett, and that is why I am going to select over the total at 64 between Oklahoma and Ohio State as our third and final pick of this week. And let's go ahead and do a quick recap. So for our 3 selections this weekend, we have -2 Northwestern, -13.5 Oregon, and over 64 in the Oklahoma-Ohio State game. Best of luck to everyone, and as always, you can find more content like this and similar videos at sportsbookreview.com.